It's so great to see everyone. As Simon was saying, you know, hopefully it won't be too long before we can come together in person. Fingers crossed. As we gather in this virtual space, I would like to acknowledge that the ground beneath our feet is historically the home of Indigenous peoples, many of whom have been forced to leave for other lands. The LEARN office in Laval is located on the traditional and unceded Indigenous land of the Ganeudaaga Nation. Sorry for any mispronunciation. It's a place that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. We recognize and respect these people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet today. I myself am situated in Dunham, Quebec, on the unceded territory of the Abenaki Nation. As LEARN works with schools and communities across the province, please let us know in the chat where you're coming in from today. And some of you did it in the first session, and if you know whose traditional land you are living and working on. So just sort of add that to the chat would be great. Lost my cursor, there we go. We have a great conference planned, and that is in large part thanks to the involvement of a committee of community development agents who worked with us to plan and deliver the conference. I want to thank you for your contribution and participation. David Paperno, Lisa Lavallee, Geneviève Manceau, Melissa Tagagni, Kemba Mitchell, Helen Morency, Anthony Spadaccino, Annie Beauregard, Katrina Driver, and Jennifer McNeil. We had one CDA from each school board, so thank you. Your input and contributions have helped us set the stage for what we believe will be an awesome conference. And I'm so pleased to see such a variety of participants with us today. We have community development agents, school administrators, school board staff, and community partners. All the ingredients for a collaborative approach to revitalizing our schools and communities. Over the past 2 years, schools have had to adapt to the ever-changing COVID protocols and regulations imposed by public health. And while it hasn't been easy, I believe community schools were designed for times like this. By leveraging the partnerships they have developed over the years, CLC schools were able to support their communities in these unprecedented times. It really does take a village to raise a child. As we look forward to what is planned over the coming few days, each day of the conference will focus on a different theme related to revitalization. Today, we'll be looking at strategies that contribute to promoting positive mental health and wellness. The lack of student motivation was highlighted by our CDA Planning Committee as one of the greatest struggles schools encounter these days. So we've turned to a couple of strategic partners, specifically the Center of Excellence for Mental Health and one of the other, School Climate. And we're going to look at how CLCs can contribute to improving that school climate. But good mental health practice is also about getting outdoors, exploring the green spaces around our schools and communities. Tomorrow, the sessions focus on equity, diversity, identity, and belonging. We will explore the relationship between families and schools in disadvantaged areas from an equity perspective. Learn about the importance of building bridges between the French and English communities, and how CLCs can support school transitions. Friday is primarily for CLC teams, but with one exception. Due to a scheduling conflict, we had to reschedule the workshop, Reaching and Supporting Vulnerable Families in Early Childhood Education. So it was moved to Friday, and you're all welcome to attend this workshop at 10:15. You can find details in the conference schedule. So whether you're with us for the full 2.5 days or coming in and out for sessions which interest you, we are glad to have you join us for this virtual event. The Zoom events platform is new for us, and hopefully we won't encounter too many technical issues. But if you do run into any problems, tech support is available by phone with Eric Stenzel, and we'll pop his telephone number into the chat. But to start us off, I'd like to invite Dr. Michael Canuel, the CEO of LEARN, to offer a few words of welcome. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Debbie. Thank you very much. I have just a couple of minutes to speak, and I hope that during those 2 minutes that my puppy, who's been barking all this time, doesn't make too much noise in the background. So if you do hear barking, I do apologize. So good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Michael Canuel. I'm the CEO of LEARN, and I want to welcome you all to the CLC virtual conference. This year, the theme is revitalizing our schools and communities. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge as well all our guests, speakers, and participants, as well as all of the organizers, including the PRT team headed up by Debbie. I know there's been a lot of work, and I really appreciate, and I know that our community appreciates all of the work, energy, and time that you put into this. Learn is once again proud to be hosting this event, and especially on the theme of revitalizing our schools and communities. It's a theme that's not only timely and relevant, it underscores the numerous challenges facing the English communities across Quebec. I will not get political, but I think you're all aware that these are challenging and difficult times for us, and we do need to be standing together as a community. During the conference, there'll be outstanding speakers and workshops that will address issues related to this theme of the conference. I'm convinced that you'll find them thought-provoking and instructive. What's important to remember is that our schools are public icons for the community. Each school reveals much about the community, while the community itself offers an insight into the culture of the schools that exist within them. So sit back, or better still, sit up, engage in what I'm convinced will be a conference that will benefit all of you who are here taking the time to participate. Welcome to all, and have a great conference.
Thank you, Michael. It is now my great pleasure to introduce a longtime friend and colleague of the CLC network, Dr. Patricia Lamar. Patricia is a full professor at the Faculty of Education at the Université de Montréal. Her areas of expertise are in urban sociolinguistics, language practices among youth, and bilingualism, plurilingualism. That's a tough one to say. She has followed the evolution of the English school system in Quebec post-Quiet Revolution, and her publications can be found in academic journals such as the International Journal of the Sociology of Language, Canadian Ethnic Studies, Langue et Société, and Francophonie d'Amérique. Patricia has been involved with the CLC initiative from the very beginning in 2005. She supported the research and evaluation activities that has been carried out by the PRT over the years, and she sat on the very first CLC advisory committee. Recently, Patricia wrote a series of education briefs for QuestCran, Quebec's English-speaking research network, one of which focused on the community school network in Quebec's official language minority education sector. And we'll share the link to this brief at the end of Patricia's session. We're pleased to have Patricia with us today to speak about anchoring revitalization efforts in Quebec's official language minority school sector and communities. Community schools are well placed to support school board and ministry level revitalization efforts as we hopefully move into a post-COVID world. By looking back over the years and forward towards the future, Patricia will give you a glimpse of how CLC schools can help build on students' strengths, engage them as learners, and enable them to reach their full potential through community partnerships. Research from the US indicates that the community school strategy may be one of the best tools we have to meet the moment and make a lasting and transformative impact that will benefit all students. Please join me in welcoming Patricia Lamar.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Hello, everybody. I'm a dry academic. I'm not nearly as fun as Simon, but I do think Simon has got a lot to teach me. So I'm going to be bugging him for where he gets all of these great ideas for keeping Zoom lively. I just wanted to say, I know I'm going to be talking to people that probably know a lot more about CLCs than I do, even if I've been watching for 15 years now. I've always been on the outside looking in. And so there's probably not much that I'm going to teach you, except I hope that I can give you what somebody from the outside sees when they look at the CLC initiative here in Quebec. So as I said, I've been following it since the beginning. I was there 15 years ago when there are a few faces I recognize from those early days. And I do remember that first meeting where there were a lot of question marks on people sort of scratching their heads saying, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And where are we going with this? And I went in as an academic who's always a little surprised when the school system actually adjusts and does something innovative. I tend to think of school systems as great big passenger ships that are hard to get them to change course. And I think with the CLC, what we see is a huge passenger ship full of people, and it's changing courses. So I'm very excited. I can't help but get excited every time I get near the CLCs. So If somebody were to ask me from the outside, what do you see when you, what is it about when you think about Quebec's CLC initiative? At this point in time, I'd have to say it's all about connecting. And I think we heard that from Michael, we've heard that from Deb already, and we've heard it even from Simon when he talked about connective tissue. I kind of like that term. I've never thought of it quite that way as tissue, but I think it's right. It's part of the social fabric of the Anglo community and Anglo school system, the whole CLC thing. So I'm going to try and look at where I see connections and how all of these connections support something called vitality of an official language minority. I'm a language person, so that really interests me at that level, but also more immediately revitalizing schools right now post-pandemic. And so those are the questions I have for today. That's kind of what's guiding the next 20 minutes. It is a success story. It's quiet, but it is a success story, and I would like it to be noisier. I like it to be something that was in the media more, that look at the incredible things that are happening in our quiet English sector. Right from the outset, it was about connecting English schools to official language minorities. And so this is where I was particularly interested. I've studied language minorities all through my academic career. And look at where we are. They're in all school boards. This is 15 years, nearly a third of schools, reaching nearly a quarter of students. And the amazing thing is this is all done with very little money, to be very frank, and a cap on money, which is amazing that it continues to expand and grow, even though there's a cap. So the three premises, it's a lot of words. You know them. It's about collaboration between schools and communities to make schools better places. It's about partnerships to bring in resources and programs that can help schools, school kids, their families, and then reaching out the wider English-speaking community that's around those schools. And this new bit, fairly new bit, it can contribute to the vitality of Quebec's English-speaking official language minority. If you ask me the question, does it? Yes, it does. We are part of a federal initiative to try and strengthen and help minority communities across Canada, Francophones and other provinces, Anglos here, enhance their vitality, survive into the future. And I think that the term vitality, I am going to come back to it on and off during the presentation. It's fairly new for Anglo-Quebec. It's been kicking around a lot longer in Francophone minorities. But I think as we've coming to terms with being a minority and having to develop strategies to survive and thrive, which is what vitality is all about, we do see the impact of CLCs on this bit. So we are part and parcel, and I think we're doing a good job of meeting the mandate of Ottawa with the money that they provide. Why do we need to think about vitality in Anglo-Quebec? I think there, as a school system that is an official language minority, we do have extra challenges. All schools have challenges. All students, populations need the extra help that a community school can bring. But in Anglo-Quebec, we are a school sector that has extra challenges: declining student population, declining resources, poverty. I think we're coming to grips with the fact that there is very real poverty in a number of Anglo-Quebec communities, and the school needs to be addressing these. And a fact of life in Quebec, the need for bilingualism to live and work and feel comfortable in Quebec. We also have outmigration, and I know this is a concern for many parents, seniors, myself included, to wonder, you know, can my kids survive and stay in Quebec, feel comfortable and feel like full players? So to face the short-term needs of schools and communities post-pandemic, but also those longer-term challenges that I've just named, we need to pull together. We need to be connected, and the community school approach goes a long way to helping this. It does it. It actually has been an instigator of connections over the past 15 years. And it's kudos to the PRT and to all of those people working in local schools and local communities to make the partnerships happen. Kudos from the outside. We do survive with Entente Canada Quebec funding. We still need it, but I think they're getting good bang for their buck. I think we need to make noises in that direction and say, for the amount of funding that is provided, look at what we can do. We do need the money for CDAs. We do need it for the PRT, but the concept of return on investment, I know it's never been formally evaluated, but it's obvious. It's clearly there. I don't even think we need the evaluation to know that the return on investment is there. It's in every single annual report from CLCs. Vitality, there's a lot of words here. I put in, don't try and read them all or you really will get exhausted before the end of the day. But I just wanted to highlight that to measure vitality, the federal government has come up with these indicators. And I've put in dark, in bold, the 4 first indicators where I see CLCs having an impact, and it's in creating a sense of belonging to a language community. It's about collective leadership, being able to take leadership and mobilize people, community organizations. CLC does it. Providing more services to the people that are in educational institutions, allowing the possibility of participating more in the regional and provincial community with larger community, and encouraging the visibility of language, but I would say the visibility of the community as well is an indicator. All of these CLCs are doing. If you were asked, and I am asked sometimes to be on evaluation committees on how well is the federal government meeting its mandate, and I always say, look at CLCs. This one is more recent as an indicator, and it was a huge surprise for me in the early years of CLCs to see what developed thanks to the CDAs being on table de concertation and its connections to the majority Francophone group that are out there that aren't always aware that we're out there. And this has led to support and greater cooperation, greater access to things, thanks to CDAs sitting on table de concertation. Bravo. There's 2, I won't go into them, that are bigger policy and political issues that we're less able to address with what you're doing through the CLC network, but are indirectly connected as well. As I said, it's community school approach. I'm a believer now. I went in as a bit of a cynic. Take a look. That was 2006. I'm a total believer. It didn't take long. The West Ed evaluations, when I went into schools and saw what was being done, were eye-openers for me. And I think you can consider me now a champion for you, that I do want to see this continue and continue to grow and thrive. And it makes a huge amount of sense for official language minority populations. And I'd say any population that's got extra challenges. I'm thinking of the far north Inuit populations. I think we can be a model for other situations. It does require that schools change how they think about their mandate. That's been obvious from the beginning. And I've seen slow buy-in and growing buy-in. And in some cases it went fast, and others it took time. And I've seen the approach grow and evolve over time. I think it forced schools and school boards to rethink what their educational mandate was about, what their societal mandate was about, and to serve a local community, to serve populations, to open the school. But I think the other piece that's also growing is this recognition that schools play a role in official language minority vitality and a community's vitality. And that's a bit new for us. Francophone schools have known this for ages, but this is new for English schools to think about this mandate. And it requires a change in mindset and a change in culture. And I'm seeing it happen when I listen to people talk. I can see challenges and I can see things happening. For me, the key strategy right from the beginning, and I honestly didn't know how you were going to do this in 2006 when it was proposed, was this idea of partnerships. And I think these are the Lego blocks or the building stones for connections. They're quite amazing to see happen. partnerships. You know all of this stuff at the local school, community level, partnerships at the regional level. I think we were all a bit surprised. I don't think I was the only one that was surprised to see how effective it was to have CDAs on the table de concertation. And then partnerships at the provincial level, something that other academics have called intersectorial collaboration, where partners like health, CHSSN, partner with schools, Elan, I'm sorry, I'm half French, so Elan came out French there, culture and arts that have partnered with schools. These have become main partners. And I saw it happen when I listened in to the PRT meetings with groups of the steering committee, I think it was called, if I remember, Debbie says yes. When those people got together, it was exciting. We saw right at the outset new partnerships happening and people getting excited. And this last point. This was also very surprising to me, maybe not to others, but to me, totally surprising to how mutually beneficial a partnership was. The school provided a way for other types of groups, to associations, CHSSN, for example, to reach right into a community and get to the people that they needed to get to. So incredibly mutually beneficial, very exciting. And then I thought, can we talk about partnerships between community learning centers and the school? And this is another lesson I learned. Nope, you can't. You can't talk about two different things. It's one thing. So it's not a partnership. If anything, it's a marriage. But it goes even beyond that. It's like watching when you see two amoebas come together. I'm not a biologist, by the way. I'm sure I'm saying this all wrong. But when you see them merge and it becomes one thing, and just take the metaphor. Don't worry about the biology. My daughter, who's a biologist, would probably scream at me right now. It's not even pertinent to try and think of them as two separate things. They're one thing. And the more they're one thing, the better it's working. And that's what we should be evaluating. How well integrated has a community school approach become to a school? And the idea of separating it just gets more and more ridiculous, the better and more successful that symbiosis happens. It does, however, require a damn good relationship between a CDA and a school principal. That's a key. That's a definite partnership. So what's happening? I'm coming back to that metaphor of connective tissue. It's all about connecting efforts, programs, resources. I should have put people there. When there is a CDA who can take on this function for a school, all sorts of things can happen. It can support the other programs that schools are already committed to. It can bring in more resources, you know this. And it's when you combine all of these things, funding, people energy, that you get greater impact. And I did have the opportunity in 2014, I believe, to go and look at some NANS schools and how having a CDA there and a community school approach helps support NANS program in the past to counter poverty. The names have changed, but those programs come and go. But the one thing that remains is that if you've got a CAD and a network of partnerships in a school that's committed to a community approach, those programs are going to be strengthened, more resilient. Your school is going to be more resilient. Good examples of when working collectively by pulling together different sources of funding, something some of you probably all know, thanks to funding from CHSSN, the Goodnight Bag, which expands the mandate to preschool kids, supports outdoor play, bilingualism, early literacy, mental health resources to families that are struggling harder than ever right now, and gets kids revved and ready for school, which means that they're off to a great start as of kindergarten. That is impressive. Kudos again to the CLC network. What I saw when I went into little communities that had a CLC school, a community school approach, was it strengthened the fabric of a local community. It pulled in the generations. This really excited me to see people coming into the school that hadn't put their foot in a school since they were children or had children. Some of these people were seniors. Their families were gone. They were in Alberta. They were in New Brunswick. They had left the region. And these elderly people were isolated and were coming into the schools and having a great time providing volunteer services to the school, teaching kids things, and being taught by kids how to connect to their families, thanks to, at the time, it would have been FaceTime, Facebook, etc., the internet that they didn't know how to use. That's not that long ago. 15 years ago, people didn't have that possibility of FaceTiming each other, and they didn't have the skill set. So the school opened things like computers to seniors that didn't have access to the internet. Totally amazing for me. The school's inviting the community in rather than locking the gates, and going out into the community to do things and participate in the life of the community. And I've just got a few pictures to break up with the words. So these are examples of things that I've seen, and thanks to Debbie for pulling out pictures. I've asked for pictures that would show some of the activities. And again, I know you know all of this, but I think you need to be congratulated. And that's what I'm basically trying to do today. These kinds of activities that make a community stronger and more resilient. It's at that level of local connections where the doors of the school actually open and the gym becomes available, a computer room, musical instruments. People come in and offer things that schools and teachers don't have the time or energy. They've got other things to worry about. So bringing in these extra people, amazing. And as I mentioned before, strengthening the link between official language minority communities and the majority Francophone group, that still blows me away. The partnerships that have been established through ELAN and CHSSM, those are clearly the two strongest partners, but there's a whole range and array of different partners for different types of things. These all make the community stronger, not just the kids in the school, it's the community. And I think, again, a few photos. I kind of like this one because I'm a dog lover. And actually, I've got a puppy who's pulling on my sock right now. I'm trying to ignore her. Other connections. Everywhere I look, when I look at CLCs, I just see connections. They pop out at me. The extended model, where a school board adopts an approach to doing community school. It's obviously a solution to the cap on funding, and it does do all of these things. And this is a report that was published. Emma, you'll put it in the chat on the side if you can. It took me a while to come to understand extended schools, the extended model, but it's obvious. It grows things. It grows access to partners, service providers, programs. It gives visibility to the larger community and to the school board. That's a recent point that Debbie pointed out to me, that it does make the school and the school board more visible in the community. Ability to work at a systems level. So we're talking connective tissue again, and greater access to grants and financial resources. So all of a sudden, one of those little aha moments where a light bulb goes on. When I reread that report more recently, realizing that it's not enough for a school to be connected to the community. Schools need to be connected to schools and need to be connected to the school boards, and that also contributes to resilience. So we've got all these partnerships, the Lego blocks of connecting, but it takes someone to do the constructing. It takes someone to actually do the connecting, and that's the CDA. And I remember in the early years, we had trouble defining, like there was a lot of questions on what does a CLC coordinator actually do? Well, they're not called coordinators anymore, and it's become very clear what they do. They make things happen. They build a network. They bring in the resources and programs. They're the ones that make sure the connecting happens, and that's their role in a CLC school. You've got school board representatives that are also connectors across schools to school boards, very important role. They're the advocates and keep the school board informed. And then the marvelous PRT, and they haven't paid me to say that. I've thought that from day one. The PRT is just amazing. They've worked hard. They've had a vision. The vision moves. It's flexible. It grows. It changes. It evolves. But I also saw how just the fact that there was a team working with schools across English Quebec, that it made things happen at a provincial level. It stimulated something. It was, I can't think of the word either in English or in French, but it was a catalyst for something to happen. Perhaps the time was right. Perhaps it needed to happen, but whatever it was, it happened, and we need to keep the PRT. They're the ones that keep all together and keep an eye on the big picture and keep us all connected, including me from the outside. Thank you. Another aha moment. I'll just check the time. I think I've forgotten when I started, but I think I have a few more minutes. I actually thought that connecting thing works for how we look at the school and how it fits into a life trajectory. And when you look at the activities, it goes and it brings support to young families and preschool children, preparing them for school, school readiness. It reaches out and thinks that the school is connected to those toddlers and their moms and their dads and their grandparents that are out there and could be needing help to get ready, to get their kids up and ready for school, that are isolated. That's just a plain reality. I was a single mom at one point, and I know how isolated it can be to raise children. So it provided that kind of thinking about people's lives in the community as a trajectory. And there's preschool, there's school, there's primary school, and then there's that moment of huge transition to high school, and so on and so forth. And then out there for some CLCs that were already involved in adult ed, but others that weren't, and that now look at the adult needs of the community and how a school can help, even if it's just to provide a space. It's all part of thinking of the school as part of people's life trajectories. That was another connecting piece. So what's driving the CLC? Like first we looked, we talked about models in the beginning, and I think somewhere along the road, it became clear it was an approach, a philosophy, an engagement in the process of change and connection. What makes it hugely exciting for me is that it's flexible. It moves, it's not rigid, it's not locked into any one model or way of doing things. It looks for solutions. It's powered by a lot of people that are good at looking for solutions, that are good at adjusting. It's a network of partnerships and shared best practices. And so the driving force is something that's collective. And we hear words kicking around over the years in different CLC conferences and events: collective ownership, collective engagement, collective impact. With that comes the blurring of who did what and who can claim responsibility for change. And I think you're a very generous crowd. When I brought this up once at a conference, and the response was, why should we? And why would we? It's shared. It's a shared success story. Meanwhile, the backdrop for English Quebec, it's changing. It's coming to terms. Like Michael said, we're facing some particularly challenging times at the moment on many fronts. Provincial pandemic, internationally, the pandemic crisis. There's a lot of challenges at the moment. At the time we started, OLM vitality wasn't mentioned. It wasn't in the goals, even though we were funded through money to support vitality. It just wasn't in our mindset. And I think that there is a growing recognition now in schools that it needs to be in our mindset. It needs to be something that we are connected to, the vitality of our school, our kids, our families around the school, but the vitality of something larger. It's not something that educational leaders were used to thinking about in Quebec. And I would say that it's what I'm seeing right now is a growing trend towards this. And again, it's mutually beneficial. The more that the school and the school administration is connected to that idea of being part of something bigger, the more that school is strong and the more that school board is strong. It's mutually beneficial that we all engage. So that brings us to the last little bit in why the school, the capacity of community schools to support all stakeholders in time of crisis, the pandemic. I turned to Debbie, actually. She already gave you a quote at the beginning that I think we should get on paper. I'll ask her to send it to me so I can use it. There is an effort right now at the provincial level. We realize the schools have been hit hard to revitalize schools. And this is all across Quebec post-pandemic. There is a plan set out for revitalization. Here, the word revitalization is changing its sense. It's a little different from vitality of OLM, and it's about all schools across Quebec. However, as Debbie mentioned at the beginning, I can read this really quickly. Don't try to read it. It's more so I don't have to look at notes. I'll read it for you. You can close your eyes and take a break from the Zoom. Community schools in the OLM sector are present and ready to help schools, families, and school teams meet the crisis. I'm actually stealing directly from a little article from Debbie Horrocks. And for me, again, an eye-opener. I'm not in the action. I have to listen. That's what I do. As the pandemic ravaged our communities, school closures highlighted the roles that schools play not only in the education of our youth, but also in their social, emotional, physical well-being. Community schools were designed for times like this. Within these types of schools, community development agents, along with other members of school teams, leverage existing relationships with community organizations to identify needs and challenges facing their school communities and triage the needs by devising innovative ways to deliver food, etc., services to support student learning and well-being. I'd like to cite Debbie Horrocks, 2021. I know she's pulling a face, but that actually just makes me happier. As families with school-age children we face the lockdowns. Who knows, we might still need to face a few more. Communities have provided incredible help through online workshops, focusing on such fun things as dance, art, and storytelling, but also families' mental health and emotional well-being. If you look at the priorities, I've highlighted 3 out of, I think there's 9 that are, I've made them big and green because it's the places where I see the CLC approach really strong. You're already doing it. It's what Debbie highlighted. Reinforce the winning relationship between schools and families, watch over everybody's health, and promote healthy lifestyles, habits, and outdoor activities. You guys are amazing already at those things. And if you look down in the other part, I'm not going to read them, but there are examples in there where you're also present. But the 3 that I've highlighted are where I see you, the community schools, ready and willing to tackle. A survey done of community schools said that these were the focuses for the years to come, and this whole conference is organized around it. Mental health, equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging to a place called an English school. But also I'd say I hope I can't participate tomorrow, but I also hope you look at how to participate to a place called Quebec. How do we do that in our schools? And how do we reach out to French schools that are right next door to improve French language learning and a feeling of comfort in this province? And if you're interested, I can direct you to a younger colleague of mine who works exactly on that in Sherbrooke and in Chateauguay schools in the past. Early childhood and family engagement. I think any faculty of education knows now how absolutely important that is. And thank God, getting out there and doing fun things and participating in an environment that is a huge preoccupation for our next generation. So the most important lesson from 15 years, connect, connect, connect. It's all about realizing that there is strength in numbers, even if we're a minority group. When you put the numbers together, all of a sudden, we're not so isolated. There's things we can do. And that feeling that, okay, this is big, it's huge, it's got challenges, but there is an incredible strength. And I hope pride in collective engagement and ownership. And I hope recognition for the hard work. My questions for the conference are, where to next? How do we imagine the future? And what can we do to make that future possible? And that takes us directly to the questions for the breakout group. Thank you very, very much. I don't know how you're going to manage the breakout groups. I forgot to ask Debbie how she was going to do this, but I know you're very efficient. You'll figure it out. Do you come back to this room after the breakout groups?
Yes,
Okay.
we will, Patricia.
So I will stay out of the breakout groups. I won't engage, but I would like to hear what comes back. And I will consider myself a participant for the end. Who's animating the return? Debbie, good. Thank you. You did tell me that. So I will just listen. Thank you very much. And kudos to the PRT and to all the CDAs and school teams, school principals out there, school teachers that are engaging, that are making things happen. Bravo.
Wow. Well, thank you, Patricia. It's always great to hear from you, and you take such an insightful look into Quebec's community school network movement, both past and present, and give us some thoughts for the future. So lots to think about and lots to discuss. So before we move into breakout rooms, and we'll only do that for about 10 minutes. Does anyone have any questions for Patricia directly? If so, you can put them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and we can get to you. Nobody has questions for Patricia. There you go, Patricia.
That's okay. I probably knocked them right over. They need Simon again.
So we're going to move you into small breakout rooms to give you the opportunity to weigh into the conversation. So Catherine has posted 3 questions in the chat. You can discuss all 3 or just 1 or 2. And you're going to have about 10 minutes for discussion. Then we'll come back and hopefully there's time for a couple of people to share what you've heard. We're going to be in small groups, 3 to 4 people. And but before we push send to send you to the breakout rooms, Catherine's going to talk about this fabulous tool that she shared for you, that she's created to capture your learning over the coming days. Catherine?
Yes, and that will give everyone enough time to type in their questions. I see that there's a couple that are coming in. They're like, wait, we can't type that fast. So while I'll explain that, Debbie and Patricia, you can have a look at those questions.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody, I have a clipboard. I can't help but find ways to bring in-person events to a virtual space, and a clipboard to me is like so in person. So I've created these little handouts. I put it in the chat. There's a short link, a bit.ly link there. It's also in the main room. It's basically a place where you can take notes. So if you're anything like me, you scribble on a lot of different pieces of paper. I have Post-its on a sheet. So I figured, why not create a place where we can take notes? I've already started filling mine out with the Zooming stuff. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I see some of you have it. If you haven't had a chance to print them out yet, you can do so at the break. And that link is available anywhere and everywhere. So please feel free to use those if they're helpful. And there we go. So I'll flip it back to Debbie if you want to take some of those questions, and then let me know when you want me to open the breakout rooms.
Okay, just one question. I guess this comes from Brian. Are you surprised with how the CLC initiative has blossomed since 2006?
I wrote back to him already and said, blown away, blown away. So impressed. And as I said, I went in with kind of, let's see if they can do something kind of attitude. You know, I was not going in convinced that it could happen. And I've been blown away once I got in the action and saw what people were doing.
Great. Okay, so I don't see any others. Patricia's put her email address into the chat. If you have questions that you want to ask Patricia, or reach out to Patricia in the future, please do. So we're going to move you into breakout rooms. You'll have 10 minutes in breakout rooms, and then we'll bring back in a very quick report back, look for a couple of volunteers. So small groups, so it won't take you too much time I think a lot of you know each other, but there we go. So Catherine, I'm going to ask you to push send. Thank you. Thanks again, Patricia. Okay, everyone. Are we all back? Yes, we are. Do we have any volunteers?
I just want to remind everyone.
We've got just a couple of minutes. So do we want some volunteers, or are we going to, Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
Hi there. Got to get off on mute. Every time they say Debbie, it's very confusing for me, Deb. I must say, it's all good.
There's a few of us online. Deb,
there are a few of us. So. Yeah, absolutely. So my group really focused in, I'm going to synthesize into bringing back the fun to school. One of the things we talked about is how, because we're a community school, one of the things that we're able to do is at St. Michael's right now is that we're able to bring in coaches that are volunteers, parents. We have like an NFL coach who came to help with our football team, and we won the football. That was pretty exciting. We had a rugby coach come in and have very high level junior national, just people offering, and the word is spreading that St. Michael's is inviting, and we want, you know, to invite you in, and it's helping our students because they did only academics for almost 2 years. And I had chronic absenteeism. I had kids that were not doing well academically that usually do well. And we're finally in our schools starting to see a spark in our communities again. One of the guys talked about bringing in artists this week, doing some land art in their school, bringing in music. And one of the guys also talked about the morale going up. So when he first started, he's new to the position in CDA. When he first started in January, it was pretty grim, and people weren't smiling very much, but we're finally starting to see smiles back, and that's staff and students. We all came to the conclusion that's because we can actually have some extra curricular, and because we're CLC schools and we have that community connection, we're able to draw those people in to help us to put those smiles back on the students' faces. So
Oh,
that's kind of where we went.
Wonderful, Deb. I mean, it's all about the kids, right? And
All
the
about the
fact
kids.
that their morale is going up. That's so good to hear, because
when that happens, then academics will come back, and
Absolutely.
students want to come to school. So, you know, all of those other blips in time from the wonderful C word, you know, as they're starting to disappear, and we're seeing a spark in the school again. It's going to take some repair and some healing, but it's a start. And because we're a community school, I keep going back to that, but it is because we're a community school that we're able to offer all of those things and make those connections. So
Wonderful.
Just some exciting stuff.
Thank you. Genevieve.
Yeah, so in our group, we spoke more to the third question about re-engaging community partners and families. So I think for most of us, we felt that community partners stayed with us through the whole, you know, the entire time. We don't need to re-engage them. The connections and the partnership stayed strong, and they are still there. They're still behind us and with us, and so that's an amazing takeaway from after 2 years of this. The bigger challenge is re-engaging the families. There's been a disconnect and a distance between the school and the families, and you know, it's something that we are starting to address. And some parents are craving that connection. They want to come back, and some parents have totally disengaged and really kind of backed away from the school. So now we need to bring them back in. And one of the ways of doing that is through fun activities, as Debbie was mentioning as well. So to bring some fun back into the school. On my end, some virtual connections have been good with our families, but that's not always ideal. And there was also the issue of with resources within the school and outside the schools, when there are new resources, new people, or new organizations that have popped up in the past year or so, that's been a harder connection to make virtually than in person. So.
That's great. Yeah, because you were lucky. I mean, you did a lot with your partners over the past 2 years. So that's a great relationship that you've established with them. Okay, everyone. Well, that's all the time we have for the report back. I want to thank Patricia again. I want to thank everyone. So Catherine, we have a 15-minute break now. What do? They leave this room and they get back into the lobby and they pick their next session?
Yeah, that's right. So you can leave that lobby window open. You can actually leave it open throughout the day. You can leave it open throughout the 3 days if you prefer. But that lobby window, if you keep it open, you'll be able to just jump into the next session after the break. So we are going to start at 10:15, and it's a plenary session. So you just join into the session in progress that will start at 10:15. And so just a reminder, if you need to print out a copy, if it's helpful for you, you can print out a copy of the worksheet. I believe our next presenters, along with Ben, will be using it. So it may actually be super helpful for you. So I'll let you do that, and we'll see you at 10:15. And if you get a chance, I know it's raining in some places, but open the door or the window, take a breath of fresh air, do whatever you need to do. Do that little shaking exercise. I love that one. And we'll see you soon. Okay, bye everyone.
And yes, we will share Patricia's presentation.
Thank you, just because I missed the start of it. Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Bobby. And we did record the session, so we're going to make everything available afterwards.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks again, Patricia. Okay, I'm closing the session, forcing everyone to take a break. Bye.
Catherine.